All right, good afternoon, everyone. For folks waiting and like in person, we only have 3 bills on the list today. So unless you're just here to watch JPR fun, which is great, you're welcome to stay. It's an open hearing and open voting session, but we have Senate Bill 85, Senate Bill 92, and then Senate Bill 404 are on the list. Nothing else is coming onto this list, and we're not going to be voting on anything else today. Once you open the floodgates, open a little bit. So we're going to work off of voting list number 14. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Today is Monday, March 18th, 2024. We're on voting list 14. Are we ready to go?
Yeah, I just need to go pick some stuff off the printer.
Okay. So, Josh, we're going to start with Senate Bill 85.
Senate Bill 85 establishes the Maryland Limited Worker Cooperative Association Act, which generally provides for the formation, operation, and dissolution of a limited worker cooperative association. Such an entity is a Maryland limited liability company that elects to be a limited worker cooperative association in accordance with the bill's provisions. There are 2 amendments in your packet, both from the sponsor and both intended to address the concerns raised by the Bar Association. The first is 743624/1. This amendment clarifies some of the definitions in the bill. It alters some of the voting requirements for the associations. It clarifies the application of some existing insurance provisions to these entities. Applies that existing tax prohibitions that currently apply to LLCs also apply to these entities. And it clarifies that the bill only applies prospectively. The second amendment is number 783021/1. This provides additional clarification on the application of current tax provisions to these new entities, again, responding to concerns that were raised by the Bar Association.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got an email on, it was Friday, from David Kahn, who's the head of the business law section of the State Bar Association. He said, "We will not oppose the bill in its present form with these 2 final amendments." Are the amendments he was referring to these 2 amendments?
So I'm not sure if the section had seen the final reprints, but I know they were discussing the concept of the amendments that I just described.
Okay. All right.
If I may, I spoke with the sponsor this morning and she understands that to be the case.
I'd like to move the amendment. This is discuss the second amendment now. Read the second amendment now. So this is the first amendment we moved. So the amendment 743624/1 has been moved. It's been recorded. Now we have one more amendment. Can you reread it?
Yeah, so the amendment 783021/1 just provides additional clarification on the application of certain tax law provisions to these new entities.
I'd like to move the amendment. Second. All right. Now the bill's before you guys. Amended. Further discussion. Been a motion for a favorable. It's been seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? All right. Senate Bill 85 with amendments passes unanimously. We'll now move on to Senate Bill 92, and that is Shamari.
Senate Bill 92 requires a place of public accommodation that is a motion picture house to provide access to fully operational and well-maintained closed captioning technology for the general public for each screening of a motion picture that is produced and offered with closed captioning. It requires that a place of public accommodation that controls, operates, owns, or leases at least 2 motion picture houses in the state to provide open captioning for each motion picture it screens each week for at least 2 screenings each week. This requirement does not apply during the first 7 days after a motion picture premieres in the motion picture house. You have 2 amendments in your packet. The first is an amendment from the sponsor. This amendment was the amendment that was adopted by the House. That is Amendment 863229/1. And that amendment provides that open captioning is not required for motion picture screened fewer than 5 times from Friday to Thursday in a 7-day period. It provides that open captioning is required only in the first 3 weeks of a movie premiere at movie houses with 8 or more screens, and for at least 2 screenings for each motion picture per week. And it adds a provision that after the first 3 weeks, a place of accommodation may provide open captioning with reasonable notice.
Senator Carter.
Speaking for myself, based on what you just read, Shamari, I think I like the bill in its original form, but you're saying this is how it passed the House?
Yes.
And so this is, can you, I apologize for this, but can you just repeat again? I just want to get a sense of what this is gonna mean.
Sure. So with the amendment, you mean?
Yeah.
So the amendment provides that open captioning is only required if a movie is screened more than 5 times in a 7-day period, and that it's only required in the first 3 weeks of a movie premiere, excluding the first 7 days, so really 2 weeks. And then after that, the theater has the option, they may provide open captioning at any time if they're given reasonable notice. And 2 screenings for each motion picture per week, which was the same as under the original bill. No, just in the first 3 weeks. After the first 3 weeks, it's with notice to the theater.
What's your pleasure? Senator West.
I'm now reading this, the revision. It says, it applies to a motion picture house with 8 or more screens in the state. What does that mean? There are motion picture houses which have 8 or more screens in that one location. But does this mean that if the owner of a motion picture house has 2 locations and 4 screens at each location? I'm just not sure what a motion picture house with 8 or more screens in the state means.
I think that's just meant to say in one
one
place,
location.
in one location, there's 8 or more.
Is that the
screens.
part just basically used to get away from some of the smaller operations?
Right, correct.
So
Okay,
Large ones then, is that,
Like-
it, 'cause
like-
I thought you said 2 or more.
2 or more screenings of each motion picture that offers open captioning per week.
I'm sorry.
2 screenings. So if you look,
So a movie comes out.
Yep.
And for the first 7 days, there is no requirement,
correct.
correct? After 7 days, for the next 2 weeks, any motion picture house that has more than 8 in the state must show it in at least 2 of them
2 screens.
for only that next 2 weeks or
Correct.
approximately. And after that, there is no requirement at all.
Correct.
So personally, I don't like it. I don't understand why we would limit only to those very few large ones. And I'm talking to the committee now, I guess. I don't know why we would limit to just those large ones. And I'm not understanding why. I get the first 7 days. I think I could live with that even, but I think that for the duration of the film, it ought to be something that is offered. As long as the film is in the theater. Like, what is the burden on the movie theater to offer the captioning? Well, it's not required under the law, though, if we pass this.
Yeah, it is under ADA. They still offer just other ways to have it. You can have
Closed
it on
captioning.
motion.
not-
Right.
Yeah, correct.
What'd you say?
You can also make requests and things like that. You know, it wasn't as like user friendly as the experience is not as pleasant as.
Just to be sure about changing state to location, that's one. They need to tighten that up because that can be ambiguous and it can be read any other way. But I liked it as it came in. I'm not sure if I like it now, but I would like to at least tighten up the language.
the reason why the language is here is because they all came to, I think, somewhat of a kumbaya before session started. And then I think things started to degrade a little bit right before the hearing, but this language was worked out over the summer. And then I think we made a run at it. So
One last question.
go ahead, yeah.
Can anybody tell, does anybody know the way the bill is drafted now with the amendment? What, there's probably just like a couple of theaters this applies to. Is that correct? So what are they?
What was the testimony about, like, on the Eastern Shore, that there wouldn't be that many theaters?
They would lose some theaters on the Eastern Shore. There's apparently not many large locations there. And then apparently in Baltimore City as well, there aren't as many large theater locations. So for the people most affected, they'd have to drive a longer distance to be able to see, movies with open captioning during the first 3 weeks or after the first 3 weeks.
Well, my opinion, not that it matters, but my opinion is that even a small theater, like in Baltimore, for example, we have the Senator Theater, which is a really historic, big theater. There's, it doesn't have 8, but I would think that if a big premiere came out, at least one of those houses, one of those screening rooms ought to be able to offer the captioning. Like, I don't think just because you're small, you can't do it. And that's what I'm not understanding. What's the burden on the smaller ones to do it?
So we heard some testimony that there won't be as much of a demand for the open captioning movies, and those are separate reels from the regular movie reels. And so their thought process was that if we're having to, sell different types of tickets for these movies with open captioning, then we may lose money.
So they agreed to this language before.
They moved the bill.
Yeah, but I think obviously on one part of the community wants more access, but they came to they worked hard.
Yeah, but if we don't do nothing, then it just dies.
That's right.
They get nothing.
That's true.
I say move the bill.
Move the
wanna come back.
amendments and then the bill.
If they come back next year, fight for more.
I think that's right. All right. So we've moved the amendments. Everyone's okay adopting the amendments. Now the bills before you as amended. Further discussion. Senator Fulton.
Can we just consider what Senator Mew says and just change it from state to location? It doesn't change the substance of it, does it?
So then what will have to happen, though, that is it will have to
Go
go
back.
back to the House. The House will have to conform.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know what the intent is, but
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to move it as it is and just work on the state thing next year.
It would. That's helpful.
The amended bill is before you. There's been another amendment pushed to offer location state. Senators push the amendment. Is there a second on that? There's a question on the amendment. Senator James.
The question I have is, I'm trying to think about these larger movie theaters. I don't know if all the larger ones have 8. I kind of agreeing with you, but I'm just trying, some larger theaters might have 6, right? So would we accidentally be getting them not complying with the bill? Because, so we would only want to do it if it's as big as 8, because I know because in Aberdeen, we have a quasi larger theater, kind of new, called the Horizon. Most of the AMC and Lowe's are definitely got like 8 for sure, maybe more. But I feel like that one's more like a 6 screen. It's a bigger theater, but it's got 6. So I just don't know if that would be okay. And what are you thinking, Senator Muse, that what's on the shore?
Carter just said something that I wasn't aware of. What one of the Senator Carter? Jill?
Oh, Jill.
It makes it more restrictive in your opinion because
I think that would mean that even fewer, this would apply to even fewer theaters. I don't know. That's what I'm trying to get clarification. So I wanted to apply to the most that exists.
Looks like Aberdeen has 8, like, I'm counting and there's 8.
Remember, they used to be, so that's what I'm thinking. All right, so they did squeeze 8 in. All right. So maybe 8 is really.
my question to I'm sorry.
If we change the language from state to location, my reading of this is that wouldn't change anything. I think in the state is just saying motion picture house located in the state of Maryland, not 8 or more screens around the state.
If it's all the same, you might as well keep it out just so that we don't complicate the passage of the bill. But
In exchange for voting on 177, I would consider withdrawing that amendment. Bam. You got it.
all right. Now the bill's before you with the amendments. There's been a motion for a favorable. It's been seconded. All right, is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? All right, Senate Bill 92 with amendments passes unanimously. Senate Bill 404, we received some feedback. It's going to cost an estimate of close to $4 million. So we're going to continue working on it. We cannot move on this right now. So that's the end of the voting session. See you all in half an hour.